Yeah.
So Katie, thank you for joining us. I'm just going to say your title and then you can tell us more about yourself and
Okay.
tell us about the food system and um, however you want. I mean, just verbally, if you have slides, that's fine, whatever works. And then we probably have a lot of questions for you too. But we're delighted that you're here. So Katie is the Community Food System Plan Coordinator for Tompkins County. That's quite a title, and it looks to me like a lot of responsibility. Um, while Katie's getting started, I can put the URL for the report that she's worked on and from into the chat in case anybody wants to know about that. Okay, so thank you, Katie, for being with us and take it away.
Thank you. Yeah, again, thanks for having me. I'll just say I'm always really interested to learn, exchange information and knowledge and perspective. So I'm I'm coming to this gathering today like pretty flexibly. Like I definitely have slides and things I could share. I think visual aids are really helpful, and I'm also, open to conversation, but if it's helpful to give a little bit of an overview using some of my slides and then maybe having time for discussion, I'm happy to do that. Um, is there like an amount of time? I realize that we didn't talk about that
We
beforehand, but
didn't. We generally meet until 3.
okay.
Sometimes we go over,
Okay.
depending, but I think there's a 3:30 meeting scheduled following us. But whatever you
Okay.
need.
Um, Let me see if it's possible to share my screen. It looks like it is. Um, Sorry, this is the hard stuff for me. Wow. Where is it now? Do you all see my screen? My
Yes.
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 PowerPoint? Cool. That's good news. Okay, still see it? Like the full screen?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, so I guess I'm curious just to start. Actually, do you mind if I ask you all a question to start?
Sure.
Um, could you tell me a little bit about your group and sort of how it came to be and what you all are focused on and working on?
Well,
I think I have a little understanding, but
Tina, you can tell them, right?
Yeah, so I'll I guess give the LLH background and then I'll have Jean Poland kind of take over about the food insecurity specific group. So Love Living at Home is a non-for-profit in Tompkins County that serves over older adults age 50 plus. And our main goal is to keep people in their own homes living independently and thriving for as long as possible. So we have roughly 210 members and about 100 volunteers. So we offer, mostly in-home volunteer service requests for our members, but that could be, transportation, home maintenance, or some kind of outside of the box requests as well. And then we do offer programs and events. So our organization is a member-run organization, so all committees and interest groups are made up of members. So the food insecurity group is a interest group created specifically by members. And I think at this point I'll pass it over to Jean to tell us a little bit more about the history of this group specifically.
well, thanks, Tina. It's
Yeah,
great
of
work.
course.
Okay. Yeah, we're one of many interest groups. If two people are interested, they can start an interest group. So LLH has plenty of those. This particular group started as once we were solidified as an organization, it seemed that we needed to reach out to the community and um, share what we have with the community. We were thinking about what direction to go in, and it was a fairly simple thing in our minds to start with putting food in the blue boxes that are available. And that's pretty much what we focus on. We have committed. committed to probably two, yeah, food gatherings. What's the word I'm looking for?
Food drives.
Food drives. Thank you, Susan. Susan's been in charge of the food drives. We've done a diaper drive and then a drive for the high school. And we're always looking for new ideas and how to help. We recognize that we can't solve the problem, but we'd like to do a little bit to do our part. And so we meet quarterly and talk about what else we could do and what we have done. Because we're learning a lot about the community as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Jean.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I will share a little bit then about kind of where we've been as an organization, as an initiative, and kind of where we're going, because you all are hearing from me at a time when Tompkins Food Future is about to undergo a pretty big transition. It's a positive one, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it, but I'll kind of start with a little bit of the history as well. As Jean mentioned, I am the community, I sort of have shortened my title at this point to say Community Food System Coordinator, because the plan was, coordinating the plan was like the first part of the work. And we completed that plan in 2022, although I always kind of say that in quotes because it's the plan itself is like a moment in time. It's never really done. We try to, a part of my work is trying to keep the plan sort of updated and relevant to evolving community needs. And as you all know, like we're all kind of learning about this system as we work and live in it and experience it. So it's never, we're always going to be in the middle of the work. And I also think, we're working from the perspective of systems change. And so we do want to see the conditions change. So this work, and let me get my slideshow to work. Just to kind of frame the conversation, this work really grew out of a recognition that we need a stronger food system. We need a food system that functions better for everyone. And we are focused on not just any one aspect of the food system, but if you kind of look at this little illustration, we have been looking at the different sectors within the food system. So agricultural production, things like processing and transportation and storage of food, kind of the food infrastructure, the retail environment, like where do we go to purchase food, whether it's through a CSA or a grocery store, or even like an institutional setting like a school. Access and food security is obviously a huge aspect of our food system. Consumption and health and nutrition, and then what happens sort of at the end of the cycle, like what are we doing with food that's wasted, or what are we doing to prevent food waste, and are we recovering food that would otherwise be wasted? So not only are we trying to look at all these different aspects of the system, but we're also looking at and working to improve like how they're connected. At the sort of basis of all of this, and sort of the big areas that we want to seek to change are around how climate change, equity, and community food security are both like caused by a food system that isn't really serving people, but also kind of the inverse of that. And I also just want to mention here that these groups that you see listed, so like Tompkins County Community Foundation, Food Policy Council, Cornell Cooperative Extension, and Recycling and Materials Management of Tompkins County are kind of have been the core partners and funders of this work. So just want to acknowledge and appreciate them. See if there's anything else I want to see. Oh yeah, just as far as like climate change, equity, and community food security, those are kind of the central issues impacting our food system. And they're the areas that we want to work to transform. So I guess yeah, the other thing I want to say is that, when we started kind of going out and talking about doing a food system plan, there was a lot of enthusiasm at the beginning, which was, there was like a kickoff meeting for this initiative to do the food system plan in February of 2020. And I attended that meeting. There were like over 100 people there in the Borg Warner room at the public library. And that was before I was hired. And then I was hired in April 2020, which, as folks probably recall, was a really rocky time and a really hard time to begin a community engagement process. But the silver lining was that people were more aware of and more concerned about food system issues than, at least in recent history. So it was definitely a very like potent beginning to this project. So again, just to kind of like frame a little bit, like why do we exist? Tompkins Food Future exists to advance a more resilient, equitable, and healthy food system for everyone in our community. And we do that by bringing awareness to challenges and opportunities in the food system, coordinating folks who are working in the food system. So coordinating learning, but also, sharing and exchanging and action, trying to do more together than we can alone, breaking down our silos, and fostering collaboration. Right now, we have kind of a steering committee, we have a team, we have a coordination team that does a little more in between, and then we have kind of a general membership. What do we do? So one of the big pieces of the work was developing the food system plan, and now that it is active and out there in the community, we kind of steward or facilitate implementation of that plan. And as I mentioned, trying to keep it current with the ongoing and sort of developing community vision. We convene food system stakeholders, and we identify and pilot system level support. So I'll talk a little bit more about those things in specifics, but in terms of the programmatic piece, it's really connecting resources that can serve like not just one individual organization or farmer, but that can really kind of bring up the whole system. I wanted to just share this slide. I won't go too in depth, but this is obviously like a timeline. If anyone is interested in that piece of the story, I love to say that none of this work is starting from scratch. We're building on many years of amazing leadership in our food system. And, we all live here. We know like the farmers market is a nationally recognized model of a flourishing community food initiative. We have a lot to be grateful for here. However, this effort was really about trying to address system level issues and also to focus on how policy might do that. So I know there's a lot of acronyms here, but if we look at 2016, FPC is Food Policy Council. And the Food Policy Council was sort of the originator of this work. They formed as a very grassroots volunteer, a collection of concerned citizens who wanted to look more closely at this and figure out like what their role could be and what they could do in the community. And that sort of led to some funding being provided by the county to then hire staff to work on the food system plan. One quick thing I want to say about food policy councils is that it's not unique to Tompkins. There was a survey done a couple of years ago, and I think it was 324 food policy councils exist in Canada and in the US. So this is kind of this burgeoning and like rapidly growing model or like field of work where obviously, food system solutions are tied to many sort of like structural problems or challenges at the federal level and beyond with our very globalized food system, but recognizing that the solutions have to be like locally driven. So if we just kind of follow this through, we spent a couple of years developing the plan, gathering information and like mostly talking with people. And that plan was then accepted in 2022 by the legislature and shared broadly with the community. And for about the last 2 years, we've been really focused on implementation. We are currently, I said we are undergoing a transition. So if we come up to the present, we are in the process of transitioning. So the project is based at Cornell Cooperative Extension, which was sort of an early partner, and was able, because this was just a grassroots group, was able to offer like fiscal sponsorship essentially. And we're most likely transitioning to another organization, which is the Food Bank of the Southern Tier, in order to have more of a coalition structure, and to engage just in a more diverse set of activities that include things like advocacy, and policy work, which is just not something that can happen under cooperative extension, which is more of a research and education institution. So that's a little bit behind the scenes, but I have it here. So just letting you all know. And just to kind of say, like, the natural progression of any organization sort of impacts the work that's done. And so we've sort of grown from this little seed of an idea, and we've grown quite a bit, and moving into the next chapter, which I'm very excited about. I am going to just talk a little bit about the plan. Why did people want to develop a plan? We kind of came at this with the understanding that, and the belief that food is a necessity. It touches everyone. And I will say that part of what's been really wonderful about working in this space, I've been doing food systems work for a lot longer than the last 5 years, but it is, I've done other work as well, like mostly focused on energy and climate. And there's something about food that is universally unifying. And I think that has made this project, it's made it really meaningful, and it makes it possible to bring a lot of different voices to the table, because you just would be hard pressed to find someone who isn't thinking about food multiple times a day. Decisions about food affect our health, our well-being, our resilience as a community, and good plans can sort of guide good decision making and potentially improve quality of life for all citizens. So we also recognized, as we were doing this work within the pandemic, the importance of building a stronger foundation now, sort of building a more robust local food system now is going to be really important as we continue to weather, more uncertainty, more shocks to our system. The pandemic was sort of a training, and it's unfortunately there will be more. So oops, sorry about that. So just a quick recap of our process. I talked to you about the funding and spent a couple of years. We did a baseline assessment where we really tried to better understand, kind of like take stock and reflect that back to the community. So, just starting from a common sort of grounding, common understanding of the system, which then led to the development of the plan, which is like really more of an action plan with specific priorities identified. I am really proud of the fact that we engaged over 2,000 people in that process, 50 plus businesses and organizations. These are the next couple of slides are mostly meant to like tell you where more information is if you're interested in more, but the baseline assessment, as I mentioned, was kind of the first step, and we looked at both like existing data, and we did a lot of our own, I hate to call it data, because again, really it was like conversations with people that were incredibly illuminating and important. That was what we spent most of the time on, but where there was good data, like for example, the Ag Census or Feeding America, you all probably know their Map the Meal Gap is a really great resource in terms of understanding food insecurity at all the way down to the county level. The executive summary that's linked there is I think a good resource that kind of is a good starting point. This is just kind of a very high level summary of the challenges and vulnerabilities that we heard about in speaking with people in our system, kind of broken out by those different sectors. And again, that's kind of that you can read more on the executive summary. So the plan itself, what ended up emerging out of all of those conversations was kind of like a call to action from the community that it felt like people were saying, we need to move in these directions. We need to build resilience in our system. We need to cultivate equity and economic opportunity and promote human and ecosystem health. The plan itself is really rooted in these like local needs, but situated in a global context. The plan is, I always try to make a point to say this, the plan is a voluntary framework for future actions and collaborations going forward. So the plan is not owned by any one organization. It's not on any one organization's shoulders to carry it out. It's really like an invitation to say, like, where do you see yourself in this plan? What do you see in here that's exciting to you, or you want to work towards, or you're already working on and need more partners? And I will say that has really come to fruition. Like in just getting more familiar with the plan, people have sort of come to us and say, like, yes, this is aligned with what I'm doing. So to just share a little bit, to kind of, I want to take a moment to like bring in the voices of community members and just share a couple of quotes here. People who helped create this plan, leaders, advocates, growers, volunteers from across the food system who are really at the heart of the issues that we talk about and are really driving the change and the innovation and the vision. These are all from the plan directly, but just kind of gives you a sense of like who we talked to and the kinds of things that they were saying. This is just an overview of the plan itself. So within those 3 directions, we have 9 goals. They're kind of nested thematically, and you can see they're quite broad. Goal 4 is really where we focus on addressing food insecurity. But it's a systems level plan, so things are kind of they show up in multiple places. This is something that, sorry, that is a little blurry. I can share this with you all after. It's just the quick start guide, which gives you a kind of at a glance of the different recommendations. So within each of these goals, there's anywhere from like 5 to 8 specific actions or priority recommendations that really get into the details of the actions. We in all the different groups and organizations and folks that we talk with about the plan, we kind of pose the question of how can we make sure that, how can this plan be more than just a document that sits on a shelf? So part of that is like being in conversation about it. And it's also, it's an active process of, people engaging with it. And so these are just some ideas that we have shared about how we can collectively as a community advance the plan. So that means things like just getting to know it, sharing it with people who you think might be interested, signing the food system pledge on our website, actually looking for areas of alignment and considering how you might plug in. I don't have it written out here, but like attending our programs, we do a biannual food system forum where people from all across the food system convene and gather, and we do basically like breakout sessions are led by different community members. I know some of you know Allie Evans. She, for the last 2, has done a session on meeting like food needs of older adults in Tompkins County. And it's just a great opportunity to kind of cross-pollinate and find collaborators and just like learn about what other people are doing. And I can share more about that. And then building the relationships, a bigger investment would be like taking ownership of specific recommendations, looking for ways to collaborate. But really recognizing that we all kind of have a potential role to play, and that with such complex issues, there is not going to be any one solution, as I think somebody mentioned. So how can we sort of best come together? So I actually spend a lot of my time creating opportunities for people working within the food system to build relationships. So something I've been working on, thinking about more recently, is this question of what would it look like to organize ourselves to meet the growing complexity of our food system. And it's, relevant as Tompkins Food Future kind of steps into this transitional phase where we are looking to sort of grow into more of a coalition structure where people from lots of different organizations are coming to the table around some specific shared goals, with the ability to sort of work together to achieve those goals. This is maybe more than you guys need. This is kind of things I've shared with some groups, but I really think of Tompkins Food Future as a network, and not at the center of it, but sort of playing a unique role in bringing people together, in connecting folks who maybe are working in similar areas but don't know each other, sort of communicating challenges or concerns that are shared by many with, folks in power, folks making decisions, funders, and really recognizing that, again, none of us can do this alone. So how are we kind of building a network where there's trust, and also like interest in working together? And that's been really, really great work. I'm just going to skip that one. Actually, I think I have a couple more slides. Sorry, I wanted to just share a few photos with you all, just to kind of give you a little bit of an idea of, I think what you'll see, like in looking at these photos, is that a lot of the work is bringing people together, and working towards that collaboration. So every year we do, for the last like 4 years, we've done a food system summit. Some of these pictures show that we have done a lot of events where we try to sort of make food. Like you'll see in here some food vendors trying to help like tell the story of food businesses in the community and make the food sort of part of the program. We also have developed a lot of programming in response to community needs. So I talked before about the sort of piloting of programs. Right now, we are doing a program that's called Finding Funds for Farms and Food Access. And I had been, just meeting and talking with and listening to people for, years actually at that point. And one of the consistent threads was that everyone is just sort of buried by and struggling with fundraising, grant writing, and you kind of can't get away from it. And it's even true for me. And that folks, on the nonprofit side of things, just found that it was sucking up all of their time and energy, really pulling them away from the mission. On the farmer side, like there's actually a lot of grants available to farmers for everything from like conservation practices on their land, to sort of like capital support for socially disadvantaged farmers. There was a huge USDA program called DFAP, Disadvantaged Farmers. I'm forgetting one of the it was like the big $2 billion funding from the Biden administration to sort of provide some recourse to farmers who had been historically discriminated against by the USDA. But the challenge is if anyone here has like been engaged in farming or knows a farmer, you know that they don't really like to be behind a computer. They're trying to do like 5 different jobs in one. The main thing is usually, you know, tending to a farm. So we sort of saw this opportunity to provide some support to folks that, you know, lots of people are struggling with in sort of an isolated way. So we got funding from the county. We hired a really amazing consultant facilitator who's been leading workshops, coaching people one-on-one on like grant writing and fundraising. And it's been really great to see the impacts of that. Just, you know, people getting applications in. Of course, it takes a long time sometimes to hear about whether you're successful, but you know, we're hosting a meeting tomorrow, or we're hosting a workshop tomorrow for a particular grant opportunity. And we're literally just going to sit together and write that application. There's like 22 people signed up, you know, troubleshoot, ask questions. So wanted to share that just to kind of like give you a little window into the day-to-day, some of the things that we do. So I feel like I've talked quite a bit. I'm just gonna step through a few photos just so you can kind of get a little sense. See, there's usually plates in hand. I'm very passionate about feeding people, learning together. I think that is the last one for now. So I will stop sharing my screen and love to hear questions or, you know, chat through any topics of interest. And thank you again for inviting me.
Thank you, Katie. That was great. We do have one question that came through the chat, and I think maybe you can answer it better than I, about the blue boxes. What are the blue boxes what are these blue boxes we talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to what I know, which is definitely not everything, but the blue boxes are part of the mutual aid network that sort of sprang up or got more formalized at the start of the pandemic. And it was really in response to the need for easier access to free food. You know, sort of the main access point was like, you know, brick and mortar pantries or meal sites. And as a lot of those places shut down or, you know, pivoted to like packing boxes that you had to pick up, you know, in your car, it just meant less accessibility all around in a system that was already not very accessible. Like every so often I will look at the different pantries in sorry about that. You know, and just even figuring out like what's open when is a lot of effort because, you know, it's like this one's open the third Thursday from, you know, 11 to noon, and can you even get there? So the blue boxes were in response to a need for just easier, safe access at the time of the pandemic. And a lot has shifted and like evolved in the last 5 years, but you know, originally it was that people could invest in a blue box, like they would pay to have it built and then like kind of installed on their property. And it was, my understanding is it was kind of it was their responsibility to just make sure it was filled and make sure, you know, nothing was like rotting in it. I think that it's highly dependent on the location and the people who are supplying it. So I think now the network is, you know, there's probably fewer than there were before, but it sounds like you all are, I don't know if you've like kind of adopted a few locations or if you're trying to cover many, but I do know, you know, the people who are working on this have been coming to the food system forums and really trying to look at how to make this more sustainable. But I do think it's patchy
Very
in that,
patchy.
right? In that, like,
Yeah.
it's just a few people who are really trying to keep those filled. And it does need to, I think it works best when it's like a more decentralized network of people who are just you know, on one box, trying to keep that filled.
Mm. And they are I think throughout the county.
Yeah,
And
yes.
people don't see them unless they're looking for them. So if you haven't seen them, keep your eyes out for small blue boxes. I think most of us have sort of adopted a box, and we do what we can, and it gives us also sometimes an opportunity to meet with the people who get the food from there, because they come rushing if they see you, and they will help put the food in. But the food is not consistent, and it's not the best.
Right.
Yeah.
The
So,
weather, their weather,
I'm sorry.
Just,
their weather variables, because it's an outside box
right.
that, we've learned about that there are certain things you're not going to put out and at certain times, and then it gets a little stale, actually, having done it for a number of months. I wish the food quality was better.
Yeah.
Katie, I had a comment. I was a faculty member at Cornell, but I did a lot of my work through cooperative extension throughout the state and the country. I did water quality. So and I know all the nutrition people too. So as you got started, I'm thinking, okay, the local extension office works on a lot of this, but I'm really impressed with the vastness of this the broad scope of what I've put together, which is, I mean, and cooperative extension is just one part of it. There's all these other parts. It's kind of, I don't know how you managed to do it. I'm concerned, as probably everyone is, about the next 4 years and funding for food and nutrition through cooperative extension and all kinds of other things. And that's probably going to make your challenges even greater. Wouldn't you agree? But
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. I mean, the way I've been talking about it is just that, trying to remind the folks who are, working on this with me and more broadly, like this work is more important than ever. It's more important than ever.
Thank you. Yeah, well, go for it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Betsy.
Yeah, first of all, I think the move to become affiliated with the Food Bank of the Southern Tier is a good one. They, I, I think they do a good job. I think they have tremendous reach and support, and so I think it will help a great deal. So is there some way, for example, I could find out where these blue boxes currently are? Is there any centralized? There is. Susan's saying yes.
Here's a list.
When
Yeah,
we
there's
first,
I have it here. There's a map.
It's mutual aid Tompkins, and I'll try to find the URL.
Oh,
That
thank
I
you.
includes-
just actually put that in the chat.
I will, yes, as soon as I find it. And they're all over.
Katie did put it in the chat already. So
Oh, there it is. She's
no need to.
Betsy, just to Betsy, if she's interested in helping to supply a blue box, it would be great for her to chat with us and we could tell her the ones that we are already working on. And we have a feeling that there's, for example, a church in Lansing that keeps 2 boxes filled. So there's some boxes that are more needy than others, and we might have some ideas about that.
Is it possible that I saw one outside the abandoned drugstore in Dryden behind the church?
I don't know.
possible.
We don't know about
There is
that one.
one in
Okay.
Dryden, but I don't know. Yeah.
There's one, if you want to see what one looks like, I work on the one that's outside of the free clinic. Just right by the free clinic on Seneca. And to the right of the entrance, there's a blue box that is maybe 4 feet off the ground and has some shelves, not too wide.
Good, thank you.
Betsy, there's one right next to Clark's in Dryden too, sort of on the side of it. So
Oh,
you
well, that's even.
won't see
Yep.
it going through the front, but I think it's if you're facing the building on the right side.
Okay, thank you. I will check it out.
Thank you.
It reminds me of those library, the
Yeah.
free reading
Mhm.
library things.
Mhm.
I love it.
Similar concept, yes.
Yeah.
Katie, I had a question. In the pictures you were showing at the very end of your slides, there were a couple with kids. I was
Oh.
wondering about the programs that you must have programs where you're talking to kids. I was wondering what that was about.
Yeah, yeah, I love that picture. Let me find it here. Was it yeah, it was probably the one where there was lots of pictures. Full disclosure, some of those are my kids. But so that the one with like the where there's kids like at a table and there's a bunch of art on the walls, that we don't necessarily have programs that are directly geared towards kids, but we as an initiative we really try to like go to where people are and just like have a presence. So that particular event was actually an art show, which is not something I ever envisioned doing, but the nature of this work is that it's all about collaboration. And so there were a few folks, one of whom was an artist, another who was like a um, kind of like a communication, storytelling, photography person. And when I did the first food system summit, they came up with the session and they presented and did this amazing, I don't have it with me, but one of the sort of outputs of that was like a piece of art that was representative of kind of everything that was heard and learned at the conference, and kind of this amalgamation of what a lot of different people shared about their vision for the food system. So that piece was kind of felt to us like a really great opportunity to like share more with the public about our food system and about Tompkins Food Future. And so it kind of ballooned into this pretty significant project where we applied for space at the Community Arts Partnership like gallery. We had the month of June. We put a call out to community artists with this prompt of, how do we build a thriving, equitable, resilient food future? We had like 18 different artists come back. And part of what we did at the opening, so we had folks regionally, like I think we had someone from Rochester participate. It was really amazing. We had like over 200 people attend. Just one of many, many ways to engage folks in food systems sort of care and like work. And one of the things that we wanted to do at that event was have a space for kids. So we had a few younger artists, like my son was one of them, and there were a couple of other kids, and then we just had supplies for kids and the prompt. And so then we were just putting them up as kids were doing it. And then I think the other photo that you saw was from the Better Together event, which I think is how, I don't know if I met you there, Thina, but I'm pretty sure that's where I connected with someone from Love Living at Home. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a really, sorry, long answer to your question of sort of like youth and children. But I don't know, I think honestly, like as a mom of young kids, but also as someone who recognizes that like the future sort of belongs to those who have that imperative. Like I really try to engage with like all sectors of our community. But I think there's more to be done. Like, for example, we're going to be developing a steering committee as we make this transition, and I would really love to have like a designated seat for someone, 16 to 24, kind of, just so that we always have at least someone. Yeah.
Just kind of a follow-up. Any
Yeah.
thoughts about reaching out to the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts and 4-H?
H.
No, yeah. I being an employee at Cooperative Extension, I do kind of have that overlap with 4-H, but not specifically scouting. So yeah, I don't know much about how their sort of programming interacts with food systems, but I'd be really interested to learn.
And I just mention it because I'm aware of being asked several times for ideas for programming that,
Mm,
are being incorporated into what they're doing.
yeah.
One thing I noticed in the blue box that I try to support is once a group, some individuals perhaps, I don't know, it looked like a group, put together brown bags with different kinds of sandwiches,
Mhm.
and each of them was labeled. It seems like that would be an activity for young people, and would
Mhm.
be, I mean, it's just sort of tangential. It's very narrow, but still,
Yeah, no, I
I was
think.
very, very impressed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder, I mean, as I think I've kind of indicated, or just, by hearing about it, I'm definitely at that like kind of systems level where I'm not necessarily, working on one project, but
Mhm.
when I think about like, oh, what are the opportunities for like youth to be more engaged, I often think of, or anyone for that matter, but I often try to think of, okay, like what's already happening, where there are existing initiatives that people can plug in with. And certainly I don't know how like young the kids are, but I think they always need volunteers at Loaves and Fishes to, prep and cook. And that always strikes me. I know they're doing like, I was just looking at this, but it's either 300 meals a week or 300 a day.
In a day,
Um,
I'm
yeah,
there, and it's a day.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
sort of, it's
yeah,
very high.
yeah.
And
And
it's,
their model
go
is
ahead.
excellent too, because it's not only the food, but other kinds of support that are provided. And I think
Available.
that might be missing from some of the other food banks. I mean, you go in, you get your food, but you don't get any other kind of support that you might need. I don't know, information about SNAP or other things that
Mhm.
does happen, I think, at Loaves and Fishes.
Blood pressures are taken, and there's a
Mm.
lot. I mean, there's a lot of material things.
Mhm.
Family came in one evening, and the children, it was winter, and the children were barefoot, and they left with socks, and there's a lot there, mittens and socks, and we did a coat drive, and even something anyone can come by and drop off, hot chocolate, which is an expensive thing for them to provide, but it's appreciated. I mean, there's a lot of little things that happen that are big.
Nina?
Yes, I have a question concerning the Tompkins food future. I was thinking, what role does the farmers market, CSAs, grocery stores play in your planning? I know I've run across a lot of literature now about eliminating food waste, and there's a tremendous amount of food waste that occurs in grocery stores and elsewhere. So do you address those kinds of issues?
Yeah, I just realized that there are some informational pieces that I probably could have shared, and maybe I'll just pull it up really quickly so that you know where to find it. But the food system plan, I guess to try to answer the question, the food system plan and the folks who, kind of are part of the coalition now definitely covers like the sort of food retail environment, which includes like grocery stores and markets and CSAs, and it also includes food waste and recovery. And I'm gonna share my screen really quickly here just to touch on those. So do you all see the executive summary?
Mm-hmm, yes.
Okay. So for each sector of the food system, there's just a little sort of intro, kind of some numbers and statistics at a glance, and then a summary of challenges that were shared with us, and then opportunities. And this is really kind of what led into the plan. So I'll just touch on, well, we actually started calling it the food environment, which kind of covers like retail. So yes, we have some information about it, just sort of like statistics, and then also the challenges and opportunities, and also like having folks at the table. So someone on our current steering committee, is the general manager of Green Star. We have someone who is who's on the board of the farmers market. We've had a few IFM board members. So I think in terms of like just the connectivity, it's there, and the coordination, it's there. I should have shared this with you all as well, although I'll just note that these numbers at this point need to be updated because they're a little bit old, and forget who said it, maybe Abby, but you talked about the need being high, and I know Loaves and Fishes has said like it's higher than it's ever been, and it's growing, and you probably all know this, but just to like reiterate for all of us, like that is just true across the board. And in a way that's like a little bit counterintuitive, the need, like if we looked at these numbers right after the pandemic, like percentage of residents who are food insecure, it actually went down because there were several sort of pandemic era supports, like, more funding for SNAP and that sort of thing, just more relief. Those were temporary. And so in the wake of that, the needs sort of spiked. And, Food Bank of the Southern Tier would say the same thing, like their data, they have more requests than ever. So this isn't a problem that's going away anytime soon. And I think part of, it's funny, we're on the systemic problems and root causes, like we need to, I think, an awareness that we're all kind of like trying to keep at the forefront is that we have to do the things like keep the blue cabinets full and feed people who are coming in the door at Loaves and Fishes, but we also have to change the systems. Like we have to deal with the fact that, so many people don't have a livable wage, and we have to deal with the fact that, SNAP as it exists right now is really not enough of a safety net. And unfortunately, we're entering an era where, where that's all going to get constrained even further and rolled back further, which is to say nothing of all of the, what felt like kind of, to me anyways, like programs that felt like, oh, it's about time that we're, making federal money available for climate resilient farming and things like that, which that's all gonna as part of the reason why we did the Finding Funds project is because there's just so much money available right now for people trying to do this work that we really needed to bring it into our communities. So let me just get to here's the food waste and recovery piece. So just again, like that baseline, trying to kind of have a sense of where we're at, what the current initiatives are, some of the challenges that folks working in this space are dealing with, and then, what we're moving into, what we're focusing on, opportunities. So, I mean, before we run out of time, I want to make sure that people know about, if anyone is interested in joining our newsletter, I send it out like about quarterly, just with, kind of events and opportunities and updates in the food system. So if anyone wants to be part of that, you should just send me an email. I think, something that is going to become more a bigger area of focus is going to be advocacy and sort of organizing on the local level, connecting that up with state level partners and trying to sort of push for legislation around, things like a SNAP minimum, SNAP for all, because currently a lot of people are sort of left out of those systems. So if that is an area of interest for folks, to kind of just put more people power behind that, that's something I can share more about as well. Um, but yeah, happy to answer any other questions. Always happy to hear from people, hear input, you know, on what we should be focusing on. Folks are also always welcome to come to a forum, which I don't have the date for the next one, but that's a great way to sort of connect with others working in the food system.
Would it be useful to us if I got the newsletter and shared it with the group?
That's great.
Okay, and now
So I
I'll
could
just,
add Eugene. Okay.
yes, please.
Great.
And unfortunately, it is 3 o'clock. This has been great, fascinating. There's so much more that we could say and think about. So the food plan, I didn't read it in depth, but I did look at it, and it is very interesting. We haven't touched on a quarter of what's in it
Mm,
in terms of what the food system is. So
mhm, mhm,
take a look at it if you have time, please.
mhm.
And Katie, thank you so much. You've been great, and we very much
Yeah,
appreciate you
thank
taking time.
you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
And Katie, also please just send us any, you know, resources or information that you'd like us to share with our members,
Okay.
you know, especially with this group, but even beyond that. So,
Okay,
thank you.
great. Yeah, I will definitely do that. Great, thank you.
Thank you all, and have a
Okay.
good rest of the afternoon and evening.
Yeah, you as well. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Katie.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all you do.